Hey vinyl friends and vinyl community, it's Brian from Brian's Vinyl Records, and I am here to talk about hair bands, hair metal, glam rock, whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about some of my favorite albums from the 1980s hair band scene. So hair bands kind of formed out of the 70s glam rock scene, bands like the New York Dolls. And in the beginning it was a lot of makeup and poofy hair, and in the end it was all about that hair, that long hair, sometimes curled hair, made up, and it was all the rockers were defined by how cool their hair looked. And the music was usually guitar driven music with a singer who could really get over those guitars, and usually a very good singer to just blast out the tunes. So hair bands and hair metal really became my scene probably in the early 1990s. I unfortunately got into them right on the tail end. So hair metal is typically defined as approximately the beginning of the 80s until about 1993. And that's approximately when grunge kind of took over and alternative rock took over the landscape of things, and the MTV era for hair bands kind of ended. So hair bands were well known for their videos, lots of times featuring lots of hair, lots of girls, and hard music. And that was really what drove MTV for quite a long time. And once grunge came out, MTV stopped playing a lot of that, and those hair bands, they didn't die, but their music just kind of went by the wayside. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite albums that I own from the 1980s hair band scene. So let's get started with number 20. We're talking about the Bullet Boys' self-titled debut album, which came out in 1988. This album was not one that I typically listened to when I started getting into hair bands. In fact, I didn't really know the Bullet Bands at all until recent years when I was at work and a colleague of mine had put on this band in the car and said, "These guys are one of my favorite hair bands." And that got me listening to them, and I really enjoyed what I heard. And I found this record in a local record store sitting in the new arrivals bin. I couldn't believe that this was sitting there, because this isn't an easy one to find. But real excited about it. It is a gold stamp promo of the album, and just a fantastic one. The song off here that everybody seems to know is Smooth Up In Ya, and then they did a remake of Money 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 song. So good album. Bullet Boys, number 20. In at number 19, classic, Winger, their first album, self-titled. 17 was the big hit off this. Now Winger gets a lot of flack in the scene thanks to a duo known as Beavis and Butthead making fun of them constantly on their radio show. But Winger is a phenomenal band. Kip Winger is a great bass player, good songwriter, and these guys just completely rock. Great album. Great debut album for them. And let's see, 17 was the big one off of here, and then Headed for a Heartbreak was another huge success for them off this album. So really, really good album. Highly recommended. Winger, self-titled, from 1988. In at number 18, Faster Pussycat, Wake Me When It's Over. Now their first album is fantastic as well, but I tend to gear towards this one a little more. I think this is absolutely fantastic. This one came out in 1989. Just a really, really, really good album. And on this one, they had a hit with House of Pain was the real big one, and Slip of the Tongue is another great track off of this one. But House of Pain was a huge hit for these guys off of this album, and so yes, I chose Faster Pussycats, Wake Me When It's Over. Great album. Coming in at number 17, Rat, Out of the Cellar. What a great album this is. Rat was one of those bands when I was just getting into the metal or hard rock scene. They played them a lot on my radio station. So it was Rat and the Scorpions over and over again on those stations, and so you kind of got sick of Rat. But with time, all things come back, and I really enjoyed getting this album and listening to it a lot. So this one, let's see here, Round and Round obviously was the big one on this one, and just a really killer album. I've really grown to enjoy Rat a lot now that I have a record collection. So Rat, Out of the Cellar. This was 1984. In now at number 16, a classic from Whitesnake. This is the self-titled album for Whitesnake. Still of the Night, Here I Go Again. Two huge songs for Whitesnake off of this album, and this is just an awesome copy. This is a reissue of the album, and it's just absolutely fantastic. This came out in 1987. Highly recommend this one. It's just a great album. Awesome stuff. In at number 15, Great White's Twice Shy. So this was a two-parter that they put out, and Once Bitten was released first, Twice Shy was released second. This one came out in 1989. On here you got not just Once Bitten, Twice Shy on here, but House of Broken Love was a huge one. The Angel Song was another really big one for them. Just an absolutely great album. Highly recommend this one for anyone. It's hard to find sometimes, but it doesn't cost a ton when you do find it. So keep an eye out for this one. It's just absolutely a classic. In at number 14, Tesla's Mechanical Resonance. What a fantastic album. I had a friend when I was getting into the hair metal scene, right towards the end of the hair metal scene. We became good friends, and we played a lot of music together, and his favorite band was Tesla at the time. And so I got to hear a lot of Tesla music through him, and yeah, it stuck with me. I've seen these guys live numerous times over the last 10 years. They seem to always be touring with bands that I want to go see, which I have no complaints over because they put on a heck of a show. They can still go, and they just rock out. So this is Mechanical Resonance. This one came out in 1986, and the big songs on here, Modern Day Cowboy, Little Susie is one of their best songs ever, is on here. Let's see. Those are the two big ones off of this one, but just an all-around excellent album. In at number 13, Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In. Absolutely love this album. This was the first CD I ever bought. So my first Poison experience was with Flesh and Blood. Poison is the band that got me into the scene. And I mean, you look at this, it's perfect cover to explain the glam and hair metal look. They had all this makeup and hairspray all over themselves and just made up to look. A lot of people always look at this and go, oh, who's that chick band, right? That's the common joke with this album, and understandable. It's pretty interesting stuff. But when I got into Poison, it was Flesh and Blood. That kind of was my gateway into the hard rock glam metal scene, and this was the first CD I ever bought, was this album. So there you go. Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In. This was released in 1986, and that is my number 13 album. Number 12, man, we played a lot of this in the car rides and everywhere else growing up. Quiet Riot's Metal Health. What a killer album. Come On Feel the Noise is obviously the big hit off of this one. Bang Your Head is an awesome track. Slick Back Black Cadillac is so good. This is such a great album. And so we listened to this, like I said, a lot. Car rides, hanging out in my buddy Freddie's basement. We would put this on and just rock out to this album. It's always been one of my favorites, and so this is just a killer album. This was released in 1983. And this comes in at number 12 for me in my favorite hair band albums. Number 11, Van Halen, 1984. What a killer album this is. This is probably my favorite of the David Lee Roth era albums. Now, I'm a self-admitted Van Hagar guy. I love Van Hagar. It's what I first heard from Van Halen, and so I absolutely love the Van Hagar stuff, but I also appreciate and love the David Lee Roth era as well. But this has got to be my favorite. I mean, Hot for Teacher, Panama, what else is on here? I love that they have it backwards here. Gosh, I'm gonna have to look it up here. Jump was the other big one on here. Just a really great album, and probably, like I said, my favorite of the Van Halen era with David Lee Roth. And that's saying a lot. The debut is just a killer, a shredder, but I really like the songs on this one the most. 1984 in at number 11 from 1984. Top 10, here we go. We start with Aerosmith's Pump. Man, this was a killer record, and this one was just everywhere when I started listening to hard rock music. Loving an Elevator, Janie's Got a Gun, fine. Geez, just everything on here is just absolutely fantastic. Let's see, The Other Side, another big one, What It Takes. Just an awesome album. This one came out, I believe, in 1989. And it was a huge hit for them, and it really was a resurgence for them. They had a big hit with Dude Looks Like a Lady, which started their comeback from their drug years, and then this one just skyrocketed the band back into the spotlight, and from there they would release Get a Grip and just really take over that scene. But yes, Aerosmith, number 10. In at number 9, man, this is a killer album. Bad English, featuring John Waite on vocals, and I just absolutely love this album. You got Price of Love on here, you got Possession is a great song, and the big hit off of this one was When I See You Smile. Just a killer album. It's kind of like a super group here. If I'm not mistaken, let me see if I can find an insert here. We've got John Waite on vocals, you got Neil Schon on guitars, Jonathan Cain on keyboards, Ricky Phillips on bass and vocals, and Dean Castronovo on drums and vocals. Now, Dean Castronovo, if you know anything about today's scene, he is also one of the main guys from the Dead Daisies. Fantastic hard rock band. If you haven't checked them out, they have just had a lineup change where they brought in Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple to be the singer, who replaces John Corabi, who came, of course, from Scream and Motley Crue 1994 album. So check that out. But this is a killer album. I absolutely love everything on this album. I think it's fantastic. So in at number 9, Bad English, self-titled album. In at number 8, boom, Bon Jovi's New Jersey album. I mean, how can you go wrong here? This was released in 1988, and huge album for Bon Jovi. Slippery When Wet was a big album for them, and then they followed up with this, was just a killer one. Bad Medicine, Born to Be My Baby, Living in Sin, Blood on Blood, Stick to Your Guns, and of course, I'll Be There for You. Huge successful album for Bon Jovi, and personally one of my favorites of theirs. Not my favorite, but pretty close to the top of that list. So number 8 goes to Bon Jovi, New Jersey. In at number 7, oh, I absolutely love this album. So good. I bought this on a whim. Hadn't really heard Cinderella before, other than Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone and Gypsy Road, which are both on this album. I picked this up at Cheapo as a used CD back in the day, and you know, I listened to this thing so much. Some of my favorites on here, outside of the two big well-known hits, are The Last Mile, which is an absolutely fantastic song. Long Cold Winter is great. If You Don't Like It is great. Coming Home was another big song for them. Fire and Ice. I mean, this album is top to bottom one of their best, probably my favorite Cinderella album that they ever put out. Just a really good one. So in at number 7, Long Cold Winter, Cinderella. In at number 6, Def Leppard's Hysteria. Wow, what a killer album. This one took a while for them to make. A lot of things happened in that time. Their drummer lost an arm, had to relearn how to play drums with his feet and one hand, yet still did it, and they were able to put this out. This one, I believe, this one came out in 1987, the follow-up to Pyromania, which was huge for them, and this was even bigger. Just a killer album. You've got Love Bites, you've got Rocket, you've got Animal, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Armageddon It. It's just filled with hits on this album, and it's just a really killer one. So number 6 goes to Def Leppard with Hysteria. We're down to the top 5, and the first one out of the gate in the top 5 goes to Skid Row's self-titled album. What a killer debut for Skid Row. Youth Gone Wild, I Remember You, 2 solid ballads on this album. Can't Stand the Heartache, I love that one. Big Guns, great song off here. All in all, just an absolutely killer album from Skid Row. This was my introduction to Skid Row, obviously, and the album they put out after that, probably one of the best albums ever created from the hair band scene. But this is just an awesome album. This is my original pressing copy. It's seen better days. It went through a flood and got AC/DC's Razor's Edge attached to it, and this is what happened. But it still sounds really good. and I was able to salvage most of it. So happy to have that still. Skid Row, self-titled, number 5. Number 4, Warrant's Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinkin' Rich. I absolutely love this album. So good. 32 Pennies, great song. Heaven is the big one off of this album, but my favorite, Sometimes She Cries. What a killer riff to open that song. Just a really, really good song. Great album. I was super, super excited when I found an upgrade copy of this. I had found a pretty beat up copy, paid a pretty good penny for it, and then walked into one of the local record stores. He had just bought a whole collection of a bunch of just great 80s and 90s rock and pop stuff. This was in there. And I said, oh man, how much for this? And he gave me a price, and I was floored. I'm like, I'm taking that home with me today. And bought it. It's beautiful. It's in almost, mint condition. This is a VG Plus all the way. And, oh, just a great album. Super excited to have this in my collection. Warrant, Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinkin' Rich from 1989 comes in at number 4. In at number 3, Poison returns with Open Up and Say Ah. Wow, this is a killer album. I listened to this so much when I was younger. I had a friend up the road who absolutely loved Poison as well, and we would crank this album so much through the summers as we played outside, threw the balls around, whatever we did. We would have the radio out there with this album cranking. So good. Good Love, one of my favorites. Every Rose Has Its Thorn, Fallen Angel, just filled with great songs. So this comes in for me at number 3, Poison, Open Up and Say Ah from 1988. You can't go wrong with this one right here. And at number 2, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Wow, one of the best debut albums ever right here, guys. I don't know what you can say about this. Every single track on this is absolutely killer. Obviously, Sweet Child of Mine was the big one. Everyone knows Welcome to the Jungle. It's played at almost every sporting event out there. It's So Easy, Out to Get Me, My Michelle, You're Crazy, Rocket Queen, Paradise City. Who doesn't know Paradise City? What a great debut album, and just totally awesome. So this comes in at number 2 for me. This was released in 1987. So what can beat Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction? What can beat this? Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood. I don't know if it gets better than this, guys. Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood is their best album sales-wise, and the best one they ever did with Vince Neil by a long shot, in my opinion. I know a lot of people like that debut. They like the rawness of it, and it's great, and everything they've done is great. But for me, this holds a lot of memories and is just a killer top to bottom album. And Don't Go Away Mad, Dr. Feelgood, Kickstart My Heart, just phenomenal stuff. Without You, awesome. So this gets my number 1 for hair bands in the 80s, released in 1989. Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood. And there you have it. That is my 20 favorite albums that I have from the 80s hair band scene. Love to hear your comments. What do you think of my list? What am I missing? I didn't include things I don't have on vinyl in this, so there are albums out there that I definitely didn't place in here because some of them are hard to find, hard to get albums. And as we go into the 90s on the next video, you'll see some other things coming up that I am super excited to own in my collection. But tell me about your thoughts on this list. What do you think I should have moved into a different spot? Obviously, this is subjective, is my opinion on what I like, and people are going to have different opinions as well. What do you think about that? Are there some hair bands you thought should have been included that I missed? I know some people might think of Kiss as a hair band. I didn't include them. I know they kind of went through a little bit of a glam stage, and I could have included some of their albums, but I decided to keep them out. Another one that is right on the cusp is Queensryche. Some people consider them a prog band. Some people think they should be fit in with that hair metal scene. They definitely got played on the radio with a lot of the hair bands, but to me it's not quite a hair band. So love to hear your opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I will be doing another video on 90s hair bands. Now that's a shorter period. We got from 1990 to approximately about 1993, early 1994, when glam kind of just slipped away from you there. So be looking forward to putting that out. I hope you're looking forward to watching it. Thanks so much for your support, and until next time, keep spinning, vinyl friends.